In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Hello, and welcome to Materialise, the Launch Tabletop podcast, where we talk about turning game ideas into tangible objects. Today is the 14th of April 2023, and this is episode 22. This week's topic is the challenges of providing honest feedback when reviewing games that aren't that great, or worse, featuring Mark and Garth from the Dice Men Cometh. Hi, I'm not Eris. I'm Kate, obviously, and Eris is currently halfway between Brisbane and Sydney because he's moving house. So this week it's Alana and I completely unsupervised, which is going to be fun.
Yes,
No
that's right.
adult
No
supervision.
errors.
It's going to be great.
That's right. It could be the best show yet.
It could be a total nightmare. I don't know. Find out.
I think. Yeah. So hi, I'm Alana.
Hi, Eris. And Eris is probably in his hotel room waiting for his. I know he's got dinner coming. Going. Oh my God! Just move on. Anyway, yes. So welcome. We have special guests with us tonight because it is nighttime. It is after 7 o'clock up here in Brisbane. We've got Garth Gray and Mark Rickards from the Dice Men Cometh. Hi, Mark. Hi, Garth.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
It's lovely to have you.
Yeah, and I just want to say straight off the bat, thank you very much for acknowledgement of country at the start of the episode. That's really lovely to see.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That was Eris going, we should do this. And we all went, yeah, it's a really good idea. Love it. Yeah. So,
very good. Oh, you've got a bit to read now, Kate.
Oh, I've got a bit to read. So everybody buckle up. Mark and Garth are two members of the Dice Men Cometh, which is a group of generally unrelated, but it is Tasmania, so who knows, Tasmanians who produce a regular podcast about tabletop gaming. They've been on the air for nearly a decade, managing to amass more than 350 episodes during that time. That is amazing. 350 episodes.
Yeah. That's incredible.
We were so young when we started.
Yeah, we just released 353 yesterday.
That's incredible.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So when's the 10th anniversary?
And do we get an invitation?
October this year will be our 10th year. We started, believe it or not, on the back of a border con. Trent and I, actually, Garth's brother-in-law, believe it or not, came back from a border con and thought,
mostly related.
That's right.
Yep.
We came back from BorderCon and thinking, gee, we talk about board games a lot. Maybe other people would like to listen to us. What a laugh. And we found a local community radio station that was desperate for content. We signed up there. It was a youth station focused mostly on music, and we convinced them that a board game channel would absolutely fit in with everything they do. And here we are almost 10 years later. We're no longer live in the studio, only as of this year. So for most of the 10 years, we were actually doing it live every week in a radio studio, live to air. And then we sort of discovered, you can do this thing called podcasting where you just capture the stream and post it online. And so it's not just taxi drivers and uni students who are listening. It's the odd occasional middle-aged man or family friends sitting around talking about board games.
Cool.
Okay, so now you're simultaneously streaming to other platforms. That's what you meant? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, very good.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What we do try and do though is still record live. So while we're not live to air, every episode is still recorded live. We press go, and then an hour later we press stop. So every single episode has that honesty and the immediate reactions, and also the stuff ups. So thankfully, over nearly 10 years, we've got pretty good at being able to talk our way through most mistakes.
Nice.
Yeah. I do like the live format. There's some merits to it, definitely, and we get all the all the fun, random, tangential stuff.
All the flying by the seat of our pants.
Eris is lurking in the comments. So hi, Eris, from your crappy choppy internet, but kind of here.
And it was a team decision to do it, but it was your idea. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you to everyone.
When you started way back, all those moons ago, what were you thinking? We just, we'll get in a room and we'll just crap on about board games for an hour? Or did you sort of have a bit of a plan, like more of a plan than crapping on about board games?
Pretty much option A.
Excellent.
So if you've ever met Trent, he actually had a background in commercial radio. Okay. So he sort of brought the radio nous. And if you've ever met me, you'll know that I can talk pretty much with a mouthful of marbles underwater. So we started off with a very loose structure. Usually we might have maybe one game and then a topic of something. And we would pretty much just jot down a couple of notes and speak for an hour nonstop, play a couple of songs and to break up the monotony a little bit. But it was pretty much just free streaming the whole time.
Nice. Cool. And when you picked songs, were they somehow related to what was on the table, or just, I really like this thing at the moment? Or did somebody else pick the songs and go, no, we've got to play these?
When we first started, we weren't really sure how the radio station worked, and they had a playlist. So we would pick from available songs. But as we got more into it, we learned that, you could take a USB stick of your own music into the studio, plug it in and pick music. So we would try and play songs that related to the theme of whatever the discussion was, have a bit of fun with. I would get ribbed about the fact that I always was playing 80s music. So it was a bit of fun as well.
Over and over again.
Sounds like you've had a lot of fun over the years.
Definitely. So I started behind the scenes. I started sort of while Trent and Mark were the on-air talent. I was sort of in the background, occasionally organising interviews and doing a few other bits and pieces when it first started. So it was originally just, my brother-in-law and Mark, and then I came on episode 50 or so, Mark, was it?
Yes, just after 50.
Yeah, and that's when the magic really happened.
Wow, 300. Will you say 300 episodes under your belt then?
Definitely haven't aged.
300, yes.
Basically makes you a regular now.
Almost. It's like Tasmanians.
Not a local, but a regular.
It's like Tasmanians. Doesn't matter how long you've lived here. If you weren't born here, you're never actually a Tasmanian, but we'll count you maybe. I tell you what, I'm really not dealing with the fact that I can see my head. I know why I'm on radio, because it's really distracting.
Jason just said, we need the Dice Men Cometh playlist on Spotify.
Well, we are on Spotify, so you can listen to all our episodes there. But we should put a little playlist together, because we do try and play somewhat appropriate music when we are playing games around the table, which happens quite often where I'm sitting now. But often we're also forced to endure Mark's questionable music choices. Which makes learning new games quite challenging when you've got, currently it's brass techno funk or something, Mark, that plays in the background?
Oh, yes. Ever since I went to Rome, Adelaide, I've been obsessed with Mutter, the German brass band that does techno covers for like hours on end. It's actually really great.
Yeah, really.
I will have to go and look this up, because that sounds terrible, and I'm really curious.
MEUTE.
Compliment. So Eris says, Mark, you have a head for TV and a voice for radio. You are beautiful.
I think it's the other way around, actually.
Very good. So, Kate, there's. Circling back a little bit, we have some things that have been happening this week in Launch Tabletop land.
Been a heck of a week. So we launched the new website today, which is great. Yay!
Congratulations!
We've been slaving over it for the last 8 weeks at least. And finally we have a new website, which is great. Please don't everybody go and jump on it all at once and find everything that's wrong. Just let us pretend that it's good for 2 days, please.
Give us a couple of days of ignorance is bliss.
Oh, Dan says he's been looking for something new to listen to. So
There you go. Meute,
Yeah.
Meute.
yeah, if you find it, Dan, can you send me a link? Because I'm going to forget as soon as this is over. Yeah, so we launched the new website, which is great. Dan leaked the sneak peeks at our Stellar Kickstarter that's coming up.
Ah, yes.
That looks
Yes.
so
Yes.
cool.
I know you're not here, Dan, so you
Yeah.
can't really say yes or no. Well, I suppose you could type it in the comments, but I'm just going to show like one of the real ones. Okay, cool.
Oh, this is special. These haven't been shown,
Exclusive.
you know,
Wow.
for realsies.
And
Just
this is
thing we're
one that
sitting
you
down.
didn't show.
Yeah.
So that's
Beautiful.
which is the right way. That's the right way. So that's
Stunning.
Jackie Davis's
So
number
yeah,
one.
Jackie Davis. The one of
Okay.
3.
That way. Yep, this one's called the Gumshoe Gamer. So Jackie's doing gamer types. So there's the Gumshoe who looks.
So for those that don't know, these are our metal prints.
We should say that.
And yeah, getting game artists, publishers, whoever wants to get on board with us to produce metal prints of game related artwork.
Yeah.
Something you can stick on your wall. So
Yeah.
speaking of,
Yeah.
you've got some pretty looking ones behind you there, Garth.
Do I ever? So look, these arrived yesterday. So look,
That was
thank
good
you
timing.
very much. Yeah, for sending
Yeah,
us.
so
I
the-
have not had a chance to mount them yet, as you may be able to tell. But no, they look awesome. And not to mention that we've also, as part of our little bit of swag that was sent to us, we got this one sent through, which is designed by, a little designer called Ian O'Toole. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Just
But,
some guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just some random
They are.
guy on the internet we found.
And that one's really cool too because the visor has no printing on it at all, so it gleams. It's very
it's
beautiful.
Yeah.
beautiful. It's lovely. So I'm very, very excited about what's going to happen with all of those. They look stunning, and I can see them up on gamers' walls all over the world.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
we are gamers, and they will be on our walls.
Absolutely.
Well, I've got some board game geek
yeah.
prints up there. So, I've got Terraforming Mars and Race for the Galaxy and a few others
Nice.
around. So more stuff is always more better.
I was
Yeah,
going
and
to say
know-
the fact. Oh, sorry,
you go.
Kate.
No, you go.
I was going to say, you just got to look at the success of the Board Game Geek prints. And, they come where you've got to find frames, you've got to stick them up on the wall. So the fact that yours come really easily ready to be mounted and put wherever you need is a huge advantage. And I think, gamers, we've all got our game rooms where we hide away. And you can see mine blank here on the background. I've actually got a couple of the BGG prints up on the side there. We need decoration for our game rooms. These will be ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I know that
absolutely.
there are going to be people going, oh, you haven't got Terraforming Mars or you haven't got this or got that, which is going to be, sorry, but go and tell the publishers that you really, really would love to see their art on these things because we can't steal their art. That would just be totally
No, absolutely
wrong.
not. This is all above board. It's the good stuff. It's licensed art, original art. Paying our
This one
artists
is
to produce
one is the Terraforming Mars by Tanya Walker.
Ooh, don't need Tanya watches.
very
So
good.
excellent.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that one's beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I enjoyed that one. Jason Tam says, any news who is on the first wave? First wave of what's going to be on the
Stellar
website?
prints. What's available? Presumably.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of stuff that I can say there. Because it's all basically us talking to people and saying, hey, would you like to? People are understandably a little bit about it. So some people have been really great and very trusting and said, sure. So we've got 25th Century Games. We've got Jackie Davis, who did the Gumshoe, and she was also one of our launch kit artists. But I've just put up onto the website today, I think 8 other prints of hers, which will be great. Who else have we got? Artists. We've got some from Thundergriff coming. So Matthew Mizak, I think, is one of the artists. I tend not to think
Sounds
Jason in
right.
terms of artists because it's more with virtual publishers. So it's whoever did that art. But there's Nick Smith for some of the rule and make stuff. Who else was there?
We've got our very own. So
Stephen
Stephen's been
Preston.
working with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've sort of pulled together because we've all been in the industry in various formats, like well, not I guess the same format games, but we've all been in the industry, for a while now in various ways, and so we're kind of pulling together a lot of our own previous work, plus talking to a lot of the publishers and designers and artists that we all personally know, just to kind of pull this together, and looking forward to growing our catalog as quickly as possible. So
yes,
looking forward to should be launching some exciting stuff next week around Stellar Prints. So
yes. And then we're taking a whole lot of them to Gamma as well because we're off to Gamma.
Yes, Gamma.
So
that's
excellent.
the next big thing for us too. Friday next week we're off to Gamma.
And you said you said our fee
Mm.
was a ticket to Gamma Reach. Was that right?
Sure, but we're
appearance
not
fee.
paying to fly you there. You fly yourself and we'll get you.
Yeah, we'll give you an exhibitor badge, but you got to get yourself there.
Also,
So
you pay for
tempting.
your own accommodation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very exciting.
We're putting on a little gaming convention to celebrate our 10th anniversary. I don't know. We've got it in Melbourne in October. We're going to put on PAX. So that's how we're going to celebrate our 10th anniversary. We hope people turn up.
Well, there should be a few
I don't
people
know.
turning up to PAX, right?
We'll just be around the tabletop area, Mark, won't we? Just with a bit of birthday cake or something.
Probably, yeah. I'll be around there waving my microphone in people's faces.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, good one.
Cool.
We'll try and hopefully we can get along as well. That would be the plan.
Fantastic.
To have some of us there. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we chatted with both of you last time.
Yes.
Yes,
Over a
absolutely.
lunch table.
How time flies. Yes, we kind of reunited a little bit with the gaming industry
God, that
from
was 6 months
November
ago.
last year.
Yeah.
And no, that was good fun. Looking forward to doing that every year if we can.
It'd be
yeah.
good. Was there any other news? I don't think so. I think that's plenty of news, really, isn't it?
I think that's the good stuff. Yeah.
Cool. So we should do some interviewing.
Absolutely.
Who are we talking to?
Why we're here.
Yeah.
For it.
Absolutely. So so our topic this week, as Kate mentioned, and as the thumbnail expertly told us all, so we're talking about the challenges of providing honest feedback when reviewing games that aren't that great. So obviously, Mark and Garth, part of what you do is reviewing board games. Like that's a sort of an arm of what you do. So you're going to be dealing with games that the new hotness or whatever, and sometimes those games aren't always going to be as hot as people would like them to be. And
They're
so
not
that's
all going to come to you from Jamie's.
so as a reviewer, you attend conventions, you review these games, and you need to communicate that to your audience, about how your thoughts on these games. So how do you approach reviewing games that don't quite meet your expectations while still remaining fair and objective? I'll throw that to Mark because you're in the bottom left.
Excellent question, Alana. Thank you. And yeah, I think, look, sometimes we are very lucky. We do have privileged access to some designers and creators and publishers are more friendly to us here down at the arse end of the arse end in Tasmania, let's just say, as far as the postage demons go. But we do get access to some amazing, great games. But at the same time, one of the things we've done very much since we started almost 10 years ago, as we mentioned, was to give exposure to particularly Australian designers and artists, because sometimes it is very hard when you're just one little person plugging away. So we love to get all sorts of games. and people will reach out to us. In fact, we got one, I think, just the other day, a surprise little Kickstarter from Melbourne that I didn't even realize existed, hadn't heard about it, saying, hey, would you guys consider reviewing our game? And we will always say, yes, we'll take a look. We can't promise we'll love it. We always promise you we'll be honest. I think, Garth, there might have only been maybe one time where the game was actually so bad that we just said, we're actually probably better off not talking about it. But most other times, I think, you can usually find something positive to say. What do you think?
So for anyone who's listening and can't see the screen, David Franklin says Garth should discuss his fair and objective view of Azul Green Garden. And also Eris bets that you're on a first name basis with your postie. So
that's true. That is really true. So I mean, just to reiterate what Mark says, we are damn lucky that we get the opportunity to have these games rock up. And this week has been crazy. There's been at least 4 or 5 games rock up, and they come to my address, so I get first crack at them, which is great. But look, we started off, being really quite anxious about this, because when you're a new content creator and you've been able to get your first publisher to send you something, you don't want to immediately go, thanks, but that game's garbage. So we have a lot of discussions behind the scenes. Not so much now, because we're a bit more comfortable in it, but it was a lot about what are we going to do, and we would seek feedback quite often from anyone else in the industry that we'd know back in the day, or having a quiet word to the publisher, the designer, whoever it might be, to say, this is what's maybe going to happen. What do you want us to do? Now, it applies, like Mark says, to these up and coming one person shows who are really just turning their idea into something physical, which is amazing and is always to be celebrated, all the way up to, we had quite lengthy conversations about Reiner Knizia and a game that was absolutely garbage. What do we do with someone who knows how to design a game like he does? Yeah. So I do want to say that across the board, though, almost without question, the response from designers particularly has been, we're happy to take your honest review on one caveat, that you've played the game correctly.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful to hear. That's really liberating, and it's really freeing for those of us who absolutely are not smart enough to design games ourselves. So we're here to just talk about them. But to hear that from designers and publishers to say, yep, we get it. Games are not going to be for everybody. This one's going to be for that kind of market. This one's going to be for that. Yeah. As long as you followed the rules and played it right, we're going to cop the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's a good attitude from the industry.
Because I know of reviewers who have played games incorrectly, and they've had enormous impacts on successes of games.
Yeah, and look,
they did it wrong. They had a bad time, and then they told people that they had a bad time.
Yeah, which is not fair. Like it's really quite simple. It's not fair. Now, I have to say though, there are some instances where rule books are absolutely the game's worst enemy. And for anyone out there who's designing a game, you want to be making sure that you are either an expert at writing rules clearly, or you have contacts with who are, because we get games that are essentially a deck of cards where the rule book is, an A5 bit of paper, and you have to read it 10 times to think you're playing it correct. And that's not fun for anyone, let alone someone who is then going to critique your product.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't make your rule book an afterthought.
No.
It's so important, because that's your line of communication. Yeah. That's how you, the designer, talk to your the players.
It sets the tone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we just feel that, especially in Australia, where there are a few established people, but there's a bucket load of new up and comers. Product screams of, I've had a great idea, I've played it with my mates, I've taught it personally to my mates, and that's it. I haven't done any blind play testing. I haven't put it on a table to random strangers and just said, go. Yeah. It's all highly in this bubble that this designer has, which gets some fun, but you're never going to get honest feedback when it's your mates. You know, they're going to say, oh, it was great, or we played it when we were drunk and I don't remember. Whatever the case may be, there are games where it is so obvious that this game is fine for the 5 people who have played it 10 times, but it's not going to be fine on the shelf of any game store. And that, again, we have an obligation to say that, because we're not here to try and pump smoke up people to say that they're good or bad. We're going to say this is what our thoughts are. Now, the other side is that through time constraints, we're never going to be the thorough reviewers who play games 20 times before we put out content, because we're putting something out normally every week. We're now moving to fortnightly, and we've done so this year. But trying to play a game 5 or 10 times is exceptionally challenging, especially when you're looking at a game that plays for multiple hours in a go. So a lot of the time we're upfront and we say this is a first impression, you know, and we've not played all the modules or all the attachments or all the bits and pieces. This is what our initial impression is. And I think, Mark, you can agree we're pretty good at understanding rule books. We've read thousands of them, and we can quite quickly pick up where stuff is clearly not at the level that it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any? I was going to say, do you have any favorite and oh my god rule books? But you go first, Mark, and we'll come back to that one.
Oh no, I was going to say, for me, sometimes I wonder. I have had a few times where I've thought, I wonder whether the designer stopped and thought, why does the world need this in it? What does it add? You know, where there's not already a gazillion games that pretty much do the same thing, except you know, with dwarfs instead of cats or something like that. But look, I get the creative urge. Hey, we're out there every fortnight just putting out random thoughts out into the world for people to listen to. I get that creative urge to make something. But I think for me, that's a critical question that people want to stop and ask. Like, what does this add to our hobby that isn't already out there in another form, apart from, you know, hey, it's got nice pictures, or hey, it's got a different race, or hey, it's got this in a female form instead.
Oh no,
we lost Mark.
We'll be back once
the gremlins.
Yeah, once the comms are back up.
He's still on dial-up somewhere out there in the sticks of Tasmania.
Oh. Yeah, we've got a couple of other comments.
There he is.
He is right, I guess, in back. That, and Leon especially, who's our third member, he always talks about, you know, why should this game stay on my shelf? You know, he's a very much one of the gamers where he gets a million games come in, and then he gets a million games go out through the second-hand market, because I only need this many number of games that fit this mechanic or this criteria. Yeah. So unless it's better, it's just going to come on the shelf and be gone the next day.
Yeah. So Eris has a good question there. Do you still worry about publishers stopping sending you games because of negative reviews? Is that something that kind of enters your thought process?
I'll go. I'll take this one. No. And this is where it is fantastic that what we will typically do is we'll give the publisher, the designer, whoever heads up. We'll reply to an email. We'll send them feedback and say, look, just to let you know, we've played the game and these are our thoughts. This is what we plan on saying. You know, just because it's one of those things that you learn is, you know, you want to praise in public and you want to be a little bit more critical in private. So we owe it to those people who do send us review copies, and thank you to everyone and anyone who does, because we play them all. But it's fair enough to say, look, we didn't like it for this reason. But on that, we're not all about just giving them a certain sandwich. We want to say, we like this. We really made sure that, you know, this element was really good. This was unique. This was the enjoyable part. And especially in the day and age where so many games are crowdfunded, whether it's being from a small up-and-comer or an established publisher, you know, they've still got the opportunity potentially to tweak it. And if our feedback helps that in the right direction, then we can be happy with that.
Cool.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So Eris had a counterpoint about why does it need to exist? Is making art for art's sake valid?
I guess as a creator of something that is very intangible, like I just open my mouth and I create, well, at least that's what I say. Where someone's creating a physical product, I guess it's potentially a different thing. But like if you're creating something that is so similar to something else out there, except for one tiny degree, is that art? I guess that's up for consideration. But if you're creating something because you enjoy playing with your friends, and then you think, oh, well, I might take the next step to put it out in the world for everyone without considering how everyone might receive it. I don't know. I just feel like there could be a little bit of filtering there sometime. I don't want to be a gatekeeper, but as we said, if people are creating something without then thinking, well, if I'm going to expose it to new people, I need to make sure that the rules are sturdy and can be understood by people who don't have me sitting next to them while they're playing the game. That's the biggest thing. And we all know that the rules is just a huge barrier for entry to so many people to our hobby. Thank goodness for YouTube and the Rodneys and the Maple Universities of the world, that now we can sit and watch a video rather than having to thumb through a rule book. Yeah, absolutely.
This sort of leads into my next question a little bit. So I maybe we'll. Mark had a question. Maybe it's Garth's turn. So, how do you ensure that your reviews of games that aren't that, like, the games aren't always, they're not that great? How do you provide value and entertainment to your audience when you're talking about a game that maybe isn't so great? Because I'd imagine that often, like, your viewers, they're not going to be as interested in or invested in feedback you might give to a designer or publisher specifically, because for them it's about choosing or not choosing to play a game. They're not necessarily worried about a publisher or designer might make a change for the better later down the track. Right now they just want to know if they should play the game. So
that's totally
how do
valid.
you provide that value to your audience when you specifically talk about games that aren't so great?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is that there's three of us on the show who all have three different perspectives on what good games are. I am a massive fan of negotiation games. So for me, simple mechanics where the game itself is through the interaction around the table, that's my jam. I love heavy Euros and I love all those economic games as well, but that's probably more Mark's speed. Mark loves turning something into another thing that'll eventually get him another action or another victory point. Whereas Leon is typically, and he's changed a lot over the last, he hasn't been on it as long as Mark and not as long as me, but he's been on it for years and years now. He was initially the Ameritrash gamer. So just give him bits of plastic and ways to smack things around and have a fight, and he loved that. So the joy that the three of us have different opinions means that when I say Azul Queen's Garden is absolutely garbage, which it is, it's not Azul, someone else might disagree and say, well, look, yes, you're not right, Garth, because Azul is a great game, but Azul Queen's Garden allows what is a really great game to go from 30 minutes into an hour and a half, and people love it. For me, that's not Azul. So we come at it from different perspectives. And again, I guess initially in our early days, we had legitimate conversations about this so often, didn't we, Mark? About, well, we can't just all say the same thing. We can't all just be glowing in our reviews, and we can't all poo-poo a game. We've got to be honest and genuine. So, for this episode, I'm gonna legitimately say my criticisms of a game, and I'll be the bad one this time, and you can be the good one because you like these aspects of it. And that's where the interaction is hopefully really enjoyable for listeners. So we're not just, this game is this, you play it like this, and there's our review 4 out of 5. It is about the interaction. And I guess the joy of what we have is that almost every game we're talking about, it is the three of us sitting around a table all playing it together. And that's something that a lot of other reviewers don't have the luxury of. They might play it within their own little groups, and when they get together, they're talking about their own solo experience of this game, not the one that the three of us who are all on the show have had.
So I guess you're sort of saying that it's rare to find a game that is objectively bad. You'll generally always find there's something always in it for someone.
Every game has something for somebody out there.
Well,
there's
look,
always some generally always
Yeah.
some quality that's interesting
there
to
is,
someone.
and sometimes the quality is it looks good and that's about it. Sometimes the quality of the game is this one little piece of it that was really fun, but these other half a dozen parts of it weren't. And that's where the joy of playing a lot of games and being able to compare a whole raft of games from 5 minutes long to 12 hours long with no shortage of mechanics allows us to at least hopefully give some valid feedback to say that this part of it is good. But have you looked at this other game that does something similar, and have you thought about what you could maybe tweak?
Mark, were you putting your hand up?
Yes, sorry, my radio head showing. One of the things that we have fed back to us from our listeners early on is they don't actually care about the game that we're talking about. What they care about is the interaction and the banter between us. And in fact, often, we've been told the more banter, the better. And so if you have a game that's quite divisive, it can actually make for a great episode because we have a really great conversation back and forth. Whereas if you have content where it's just one person talking about their experience of the game, board game barbecue, then often it doesn't create the same experience for
next week we're having board game barbecue on, so
we love those guys and gals.
We are big fans of their work, and they learned everything from us. So flattery is the best form of something or other.
Yeah.
Imitation
is the best form of flattery or something. Yeah. We got a really good one from Dan. Dan says, do you prefer, and basically it's like choose one, pick one. You can have a nice slim book of rules that assume people have common sense, or really well written, thorough rules that cover every possible angle. What do you pick?
I guess it really depends on the game. So for example, we played Tapestry only a couple of nights ago, which is a 2-hour civilization building game where the rule book is essentially 2 bits of paper. That's it. So that's great. But the challenge of a really slim rule book is it's not going to cover off almost all the scenarios or even half the scenarios that you're going to find yourself in. I remember when I started in this hobby, a long time ago, I really liked the Czech Games Editions rule books because they were really well written, but they also provided a bit of humor and they also provided some really good examples. And I really appreciated that, especially when I was learning something like Dungeon Lords. I guess, there's cardinal sins in rule books where, terms flip and flop. And you don't say that this is a piece or this is a meeple or this is a thing. It changes throughout the course of the rule book. And that's just hard to read and confusing. When you're trying to make up terms, if you're making up terms that the reader doesn't understand, get a glossary, get something to make sure that you understand it. I find it quite therapeutic personally, sitting back and reading rules. And I guess, Mark, you would hopefully agree that I do read the majority of rules and teach the majority of the games that we play. I've got a game over there which is going to be a bit of a struggle, and that's fine because I do find enjoyment in that. But what I hate is having to go back again and again and again and again and again, because I'm pretty good at reading rules. I get it, but there's been a recent successful Kickstarter that was probably, successful a few months ago, where it was not a complicated game, but the rules made it sound horrendously complicated. And I just hate the fact that someone who knows what they're doing generally found a struggle, that if this game makes its way onto the shelf of a store, it's going to get bought and returned because you won't get past the first block of text. It's just going to be too much of a challenge. And we've talked about it on the show that, the thing that keeps games out of, Woolworths and Kmart's and all of that is the rule book. The reason that Scrabbles and Monopoly and all of those are there is because everyone knows them. The rules are pretty simple and there's not a big barrier. And that's where someone like Stonemaier has done a wonderful job because they are rules light. They also look glorious. Other designers probably need to take note of that.
Yeah, Eris has a good remark. The Broom Service rulebook is good for this. It has a rule summary column on every page. So that's definitely a strategy I've seen for some games, is to distill down the bulk of the content into quickly, easily accessible nuggets of information that you can kind of refer to as, read the guts of it, read all the long stuff once, but then have a nice summary that you can refer to quickly to refresh rather than hunting for keywords.
And
I was definitely going to add that.
Sorry,
Alana, I was going to add that. I think to answer Dan's question directly, the best games have both. They have a summary, maybe an intro guide, maybe a tutorial, and then a glossary or a deeper section where they cover off the things that you need to know in detail for that one particular time where you draw, 2 cards that clash that you need to understand how they work together, and you don't want to be diving through Board Game Geek to try and find, the questions and answers there. I think, and you're right. So Stonemeyer do it really well. That's the one that comes to mind because my memory is very short, and we played that a couple of nights ago. But the fact where they might have a summary sheet, but then they'll also have a glossary of terms. The other thing that Garth mentioned is it's great to use terms that add theme to a game, but you don't need theme for a discard pile. You don't need theme to a deck when we all know, they're common terms. And by doing that, you actually just add confusion to the game. I get we can't say tap because it's trademarked to Magic. So we can say tilt slightly or things like that. But for the most part,
to the left.
that's right.
Yeah.
For the most
say
part,
what it is.
Simplify rather than complicate, because as we know, it's hard enough to get a new game to the table where you're all new to it without adding those extra layers of complication.
So it definitely sounds like, as a reviewer, a poorly written or inconsistent or rule book really does hamper the process for you to come up with a review that something you can talk about. It just makes that much harder.
Well, it does, and we're gonna say it. We're gonna say this is a horrible rule book. Now, you look at someone like Vital and Ian O'Toole and what they do for their games. Those rule books are not short, but geez, they are excellent rule books. And then every player gets their own little player guide that really helps them through. And for anyone designing the heavier type of games, that's the template. That's where you are going to be able to get a lot of information transferred pretty simply. And I think that's a credit to them.
Yep.
I think also, just to tag on to that, if you've got a 5-minute card game where it takes 10 minutes to play the rules, clearly there's something wrong.
Bit of a mismatch. Yeah.
It's a tough one where you have to, you want to introduce a new game to your game group, but you have to be organized enough to have pre-read the rule book, analyzed it, codified it, done rereads, and to the point where you're an expert, you could give a lecture on it. Like that's tough when you're trying to introduce a game to a casual board game group.
Well, we've been doing, Mark and I have been doing stuff in our work lives, actually, where we've been, when we're in meetings or whatever, we've been bringing card games or games as a little icebreaker. So that is the ultimate test of a game, to see whether you can get half a dozen or more people to understand it. So I took a new real-time game called Kites, where you're cooperatively trying to put on the best kite show, where you'll all win if you get through a deck of cards, which are basically kite cards, or you'll all lose if any one of the half a dozen sand timers flips out.
That sounds absolutely delightful.
It is brilliant, thoroughly recommended, and it is at a really good price point. My family has loved it. Mark, you and I and Leon have played it, and the team at work ended up a couple of people buying it. So that's a thoroughly good recommendation. But it has a really small rule book. However, I still wouldn't have felt comfortable teaching it to them in that environment had I not already played it 10 times.
Yeah.
And
sounds
as you
a little
said,
bit
even today,
Hanabi.
Yeah, Garth, I was going to say, when you mentioned to me that you were playing it, you actually left out a couple of rules that made it slightly more complicated. But at least you had the knowledge of the game to be able to do that.
Yeah. It's definitely an art form. Teaching games is an art form. And you having a good rule book is you want the good foundation to then be able to teach the game to people who have not read the rule book. So,
Mm.
yeah, absolutely. Have you ever faced any backlash from the gaming community or a game designer, publisher group, or whatever for any honest but negative reviews that you might have given? And like, how did you handle that? I'll throw that to Mark. I think Mark's due for a question.
I'll just, as long as I don't stop peddling while I talk, hopefully.
As long as you talk about Tharos,
what's
Mark.
happening there. Yeah, so I think no is the answer.
Okay.
I do remember the first few times where we were very, very scared to actually reach out and say, we're not sure how to say this to you, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Designer.
But this sucks.
Really didn't enjoy it.
Yep.
And we were very, very, very nervous to do that. And as Garth mentioned earlier on, the fact that pretty much every time they came back and said, look, that's fine. Did you play this rule correctly? And they would talk us through and, we'd find out if we did or didn't. I think that was great. We, yes, I do remember Tharos, where the poor designer told us about the 10-year struggle of getting his game through his friends and then through the publisher, and then the publisher changed it so many times. And he pointed us to the 500 pages of backstory for the fictional setting that were on a distant dark forum on Board Game Geek buried somewhere. And we did feel very sorry for him. And again, I think we did a decent review. We talked about some very positive points for that game. And there are some people that actually love that game. But there are a lot, it's not going to appeal to a lot of new players because of some of the aspects of it. But I feel like we've had a really good reception. I was trying to think of where we had a bad reception. The one that comes to mind, I think, is when Trent interviewed a Spiel des Jahres judge and basically told them that their whole process was corrupt. And it was all just about the Spiel des Jahres team making money by sticking the sticker on the game and getting it out there. So they would simply just choose the game that was going to look best on the shelf. I don't know that went down so well, but there was a large element of tongue-in-cheek in the interview. And it sort of came around originally. But I think for the most part, I find game designers to be incredibly understanding and just grateful that we have been willing to look at what they've created and have a conversation with them. So many of them have said, actually, look, I've sent this out to so many reviewers, and you're the first people to actually come back, ask me questions, engage with me and talk about it, which I have found really surprising. But I guess there are those channels out there that just, and I guess the Dice Cow comes to mind, where they just must have to chew through so many games because everyone sends them everything. So I certainly feel for them. We don't have that concern, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like the industry and people who play games, they see the value in honesty in reviewing, rather than sort of just pandering to sort of commercial pressures. There is a place for negative or honest feedback in the industry. So that's good to hear.
Well, if the whole industry is made of people who are just told how good everything is, then it's going to be a pretty horrible industry, and it's not going to create interesting stuff. It's just going to create carbon copies of stuff that was successful last time, and that seems like a pretty boring place to be. So, I love the fact that we're honest. I love the fact that we're not for hire. We absolutely go out there and say, look, we would love to have review copies, but we don't get money for it. We don't get anything like this. We do have sponsors on the show, and we're very open and honest about that. But they send us some games and we call them garbage. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, this is sort of, we've been talking about this nebulous idea of good. And Eris actually asked a really good question. So, what metric do you use to define good? Because we sort of we throw that term out there. Oh, is it a good game or a bad game? We did talk about the sort of the objective measures and the subjective measures, but in your opinion, what things are you looking for that you would then go, yes, this is a good game?
All right, well, I'll go first. So I think the immediate thing that makes a game a good game is that the art matches the type of game you're going to play. If you've got a game that is cartoony and casual and then is a 4-hour game, that's going to be confusing people who buy it off the shelf. Go, oh, I've got a light, cartoony, quick game. That's going to be great. There's one here called, was it Food Truck Champion, Mark? That looks cartoony and looks little and looks light and is the size of a small book, and it's a bloody ordeal to go through. It's almost like a Glory to Rome innovation type game, which is really heavy duty. So having the consistency in this is what a game looks like and this is what I'm going to be doing, matched up with the mechanics of it all is really important. And again, good is absolutely subjective. What I think is good is not what Mark's going to think is good, is not what Leon's going to think is good. But if I can say, for me, good is I can play it with my family who's this age and this age. We can get it around the table in this time frame. It does what it says on the box, and I actually care why I'm playing this game, then that's good. You look at the little blurb on the back of it and it says you're all going to be pizza makers in a dwarven village selling stuff to the evil so-and-so. Then that's fine, as long as the game tells me, oh, you're going to be doing this and turning this and doing this and doing this, and it's fun. And my daughter actually, talked about this only a couple of nights ago when we were playing viticulture. And I, as I do, talk to my family about board games. And she asked me, what makes a game complicated? And, I said, well, you can have a card game of making wine where every card is a bottle of wine and you win by getting rid of your cards. Or you can have another game where you get a deck of cards that are grapes and then you go to this and then you do this. And then your final thing is where you've sold wine. And, I was able to articulate that quite well. And this is where, again, if a game tells me up front, this is what you're going to be doing, this is why you care, it's going to take you this long, and it delivers on that, then that's good.
Yeah, I'm definitely Maggie to Garth's Amy, where I need the theme to tie into the mechanics, and I am all about thematic depth in game. And if a game pretends that it has thematic depth by having this complicated backstory, but then you go into the game and it's really just skimming across the surface, then I would argue, well, why do you have that theme? Or you need to think more about how the theme and mechanics tie together. But the other, I think, very simple thing for me is if I finish a game and I go, oh, that was good, I want to play that again, then for me, that's the big golden tick of, it doesn't matter that I've been sitting here for 5 minutes or 5 hours. If I have that feeling at the end of the game, then clearly it's scratched some itch that I have that potentially another game can't easily fill that gap. So that's probably what I look for as far as good.
Yeah, right. So wanting to play it again is a good metric. I think that could be fairly universally applied. If you like a game enough, you want to play it again, then that's probably the hallmark of a good game. So I guess to kind of round out the interview, actually, Eris has one more really good question. Eris, it's almost like you normally host this show, but so to kind of just round out sort of what we've been talking about, as a reviewer, like what advice would you give to designers or publishers that want to send you games to review? Like, what's the sort of the distilled down things to kind of really remember or to think about?
Do it. Is the short answer.
Step one, do it.
Do it. I mean, look, the short answer is yes, do that, because any designer, established or new, needs to get independent and hopefully impartial opinions on their product. We do it in a public forum. So you send us games, you're going to get feedback from us, good, bad, and otherwise, and hopefully that is taken with the spirit in which it is intended, which, yes, we're creating hopefully enjoyable content to listen to, but for designers and publishers, it's truthful. If we're saying this part of the game or this design choice doesn't quite work for us for X, Y, and Z reasons, then hopefully that is taken on board, and something might happen of it, something may not. I've got so many games there that we have played multiple times that are prototypes that have never seen the light of day, some of which have become really established games, and that's really good. But the games that we get sent are sometimes so different when they are actually produced, because they've actually taken not just our advice, but advice from clearly people who are just outside their small friendship group, or their small clique, and that's been good to see.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just
So
wanted to add
it's-
some actual useful advice. Thanks, Garth. I would say, particularly if you're designing a slightly more complicated game, making yourself available to chat beforehand, for us to ask questions. I mean, a classic example recently was Kenny with Scrap.
Yep.
Where the night we were playing the game, Kenny basically made himself available on chat. We were messaging him specific rule questions, because he made it clear that the rule book was still at a quite early stage. So we were able to message him specific questions and get answers in real time. That was fascinating, seeing the process of that, but also it really meant we could actually play the game properly, rather than playing half a game going, oh, actually, this is a bit frustrating. Let's stop. Maybe we'll come back to it later, or maybe not, because we don't have time. Enabled us to play a full version of the game, which that is quite a complicated game. Give him some feedback around those rules, but also be able to play it, have the confidence that we have played it properly, and therefore we can talk about our experiences more when we're not going to be saying the wrong thing when we've done the wrong thing. So I think if you are going to make your review copies available, then think about how you communicate with the reviewers and support them through the process of playing your game.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's a bit of it's a full life cycle. It's not just send it, done, expect good things to happen. You've got to be engaged with the process.
And that is really hard,
that's good
because a lot of these people are sending us their baby, and they think it's the best thing in the world, and it's really hard to go.
Actually, got problems here. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, look, I think that sort of nicely wraps up our sort of interview segment. Those are sort of really good sort of tips and insights, I think, that a lot of us could take on board as publishers, designers, other reviewers that might be wanting to get into the game, start their own reviewing. Good things to be mindful of. Absolutely.
Hey, Alana, you know what I've just realized we don't have? We don't have
the
the slide for the questionnaire.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, no.
That's okay, because we're not doing the traditional questionnaire.
No, that's right. Yes, we should move on to the questionnaire. So
I'll do the questions. Like, I'll put the things up and you ask the questions.
Absolutely.
Right, so we're going to ask you 5 questions. You will be marked on your answers.
Yeah.
I don't want to be marked. I spent enough time with him.
So question 1, are you more of a strategy, luck, bluffing, or resource management enthusiast? So Mark.
Well, as you've heard Garth say earlier, I am a bit of a Euro game buff, but at the same time, I do love my theme. I've been totally hooked into the worlds of creators like Awakened Realms, with Nemesis and Aetherfields and Tainted Grail, that I've spent hours and 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 hours playing. If I say I can't stand, it's probably a bit strong, but I'm not a huge fan of abstract games. I need to engage with the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. That would be me.
Okay.
Easy. I'm bluffing.
Bluffing?
Everyone knows that they can't trust me around the table, and that's fine.
Garth is a sneaky bastard, and you cannot ever trust him.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can't trust someone with a beard that magnificent.
I remember playing a game of Chinatown with you, Alana, in Brisbane one year.
Oh God, Chinatown!
And that was when we had a night out with Martin Wallace, and I believe this guy won.
I remember distinctly. Yeah, bluffing is absolutely not my jam. It doesn't tickle me in the right ways.
Oh, I love it.
Cool.
All right. Question 2.
Question the second. So, time-traveling aliens or shape-shifting wizards? Garth.
Well, I think shape-shifting wizards, time-traveling aliens, there's too much of that. That's boring. Any shape-shifting wizards who are bluffing something.
Good answer. Mark?
Oh, look, I was just going to refer back to my earlier answer about heads for radio. If you don't have to look like this, why would you? So I'd definitely go for a shape-shifting wizard.
Well, we do look like a couple of them, don't we? Unfortunately, the shape is round. That's the problem.
Round is a shape.
It is.
Number 3.
All right. So you're stranded on an island. Which game component would you pick? A bag of meeples or a box of dice?
Because Wilson, the
you go first
volleyball,
on
was
this
already
one.
taken.
Well, given we are the Dice Men Cometh, I think that one is obvious. At Dice Men Cometh on all the socials.
Same.
Okay.
Dice.
Yep. Come with
Okay.
the dice. Yep. Fair enough. Now, this could be controversial. Expansion packs, essential or unnecessary?
Surely this is a why not both situation. If the game is good, give me more. If the game is average, just move on to something else.
Mark?
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say any game that's good enough to survive without any expansions is great. And I think so often we do see, I don't know whether it's a Kickstarter thing, where when you look at a game and an expansion, you can tell that that game has been designed and then a portion of it has been pared back to be released at a later stage, not looking at any designers whose names might end in inch.
No. He didn't actually take anything out of that. I can tell you that what went to Kickstarter in that first one, that was actually what was designed. He just was like, and I've got all this other stuff that I'm going to do as well. He hadn't actually designed any of that other stuff. Well, no, that's not true. He had
Sorry, that one just came to mind as a game that obviously you do. I'm waiting for my latest Kickstarter of the 3rd expansion. But I think if a game can stand on its own, then let it. Yeah. I love those games. I mean, Race for the Galaxy is a classic example of a brilliant game that has just had extra complication added to it by expansions. And I know Garth and I love to play it in its pure form. The problem with that is there are some of the, I was going to say races, there are some streams that are not quite fully, what's the word I'm looking for? Discovered, encouraged, uncovered with those 6 value, I'm having a mental blank, developments that have been added on by expansions as an example. But yeah, look, I love to play the game in its purest form.
Good answer.
Cool. All right, lucky last.
Garth is not convinced. And finally, so what historical figure would you invite to a game night?
That's a toughie.
I don't know. I reckon any famous shyster. You know, again, I want a good bluffing challenger. You know, I reckon that's going to be great fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to sit down and example play. What's the game I'm thinking of? Brass Birmingham with some actual
from Peaky Blinders, those
Industrial
guys.
Revolution magnates, just to see if they would do it any differently. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it would be
surely
fascinating.
Playing Cyclades, you know, with with Alexander the Great would be spectacular.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, come on.
Too difficult to pick just one.
There's so many to choose from. That's right.
Yeah.
Can I say Prince? I'd like to have Prince at a game night.
Sure. I
Just
guess they
because
count
I'd
as
like to have
historical.
Prince.
Yeah, definitely.
Very good. No, there you go. So that's the questionnaire. 5 silly questions with many
5
silly
very
answers.
questions.
So we're gamers. So who won? Like, Surely.
Oh,
You need
yeah,
to tell us who won.
Yeah, what was my
Let me,
score?
let me roll some dice. I'll consult the
It's a
rule book.
tie.
Yeah, this rule book has no win condition. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Okay, fine.
Very good.
Awesome.
Alrighty.
Well, I think that does it. Are we done? Yes.
I
Yes.
think that's good. We've done all the important bits. Eris will be hopefully proud.
And I'm sure not just
Hopefully,
a little bit.
hopefully Eris has enjoyed their meal.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us this week, Mark and Garth. It's been good.
Oh, it's been an absolute
Absolutely.
pleasure.
Thank you
I
so
have enjoyed
much.
watching quite a few of your episodes,
Oh, thank you.
and to be in one has been both fascinating and incredibly scary, and reminding me of what a great medium radio is.
So if people would like to find you out there in, the great wide internet, where should they go looking?
Well, quite easily, we have our own website, dicemencometh.com. Oh, there
Excellent.
it is. And
Look
we
at
are at Dice Men Cometh on all the socials. So we're probably most active on Instagram. We have Twitter. We're on Facebook. And there's also especially I guess for designers and publishers, dicemencometh@gmail.com. So send us emails, talk to us, engage. We are, as Mark said earlier, all about promoting the hobby, and especially promoting designers and publishers that are Australian, New Zealand, Antipodean, because in Australia it is still such an emerging business. And the amount of increase in content creation, the amount of ups and downs that lots of designers and publishers have had over the last 10 years that we've been around has been really interesting. It's great to see in Australia the growth that is happening with tabletop games. And I'm sure I can speak for Mark and Leon when I say we're really proud to be a part of it, whether that be a big or a small part. I guess, we'll figure that out ourselves. But, something like the creation of the Kangaroo Awards, which started off as the half-arsey awards, Mark, that we were doing as a bit of a light-hearted take that has now formed into a really hopefully important, award for a lot of designers and publishers that are highlighting Australian content and games.
But how Australian is that? The half-arsies.
We thought we needed to come up with something a little bit more professional eventually. Normally we don't bother.
Oh, you don't have to be professional until they start paying you for it.
Exactly. Well, we're looking for that ticket
when does that happen?
Yeah.
More sponsors.
I think you're on mute. You're on mute?
No, I'm not on mute.
Shake. No.
No,
Well, no, look, in all seriousness, I just want to say I'm really excited about everything that Launch Tabletop is doing. And I think, it's great. Obviously, the artwork that's coming on board, that's going to be really exciting. And just being able to give designers who are trying to turn their idea into a physical product, to give them an option to do that is really impressive. And I do thank you on behalf of the industry for doing that. It is a challenge, and we are very much in the case where we admire anyone who has the guts to turn an idea into a physical product. Now, sometimes that's going to be an idea that works for their table and their table alone, but sometimes you're going to get this wonderful idea that turns into a success. And we just love that people keep doing this. I wish I was smart enough to design a game.
Yeah, it's a fun industry to be in. And yeah, very good. I'm losing my voice.
Stop talking, woman.
Dear.
Well, we should wrap up. It's time for dinner. I don't know about you guys, but I've got pizza about to happen upstairs. So
Got an empty glass.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
going
and
out
I
to a
ran out of
fancy
gin.
steak restaurant.
ooh, now you've run out of gin.
Good.
Right. So here's the end of the episode. It's a whole lot of reading. So buckle up. Alana, thank you. It's been good. I don't think we embarrassed
Thank you.
ourselves too much.
Absolutely.
And hopefully
No. Well done.
again.
Absolutely. I think you will.
And we look forward to having Eris back next week. Thank you, everyone who joined us in the chat. It was great. Lots and lots of comments. I think it might have been a record for sheer number of comments this week.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
maybe we
There's a
should
lot
lock
going
Eris
on.
We win.
in the hotel room more often.
You win. That was the win condition.
Exactly.
Good one. If
Yeah, beat
people
that
out
board
there are
game
watching-
barbecue.
Sorry?
said, beat that board game barbecue.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have to get them on.
Uh,
If
No,
anyone
you
out
don't.
there would like to propose topics or ask questions for a future show, or just, talk more about game development or anything else related to bringing game ideas to life, join us on our Discord server, launchtabletop.com/Discord. You can also follow us on YouTube and Facebook with future episodes, always, well, not always, but usually once a week. If you watched on YouTube, please give us a like and, maybe consider clicking that little subscribe button. That would be very helpful. And if you have any questions or thoughts, watching this after the fact, drop them in the comments. We do love to crap on about a lot of stuff, and we're just as good at doing that in typing as we are with actual words. Yes, there is a new link, Eris. Alana moved the electrons. It was great. So I'm Kate, your temporary host, and this has been Materialise, the Launch Tabletop podcast. See you all next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep.